today is all about our hygiene, our way of expression through our voice, through our creativity that comes out through our throat chakra, right? And really expressing ourselves truthfully and authentically in alignment to our soul's purpose. And how do we unblock that and open that up in our lives so that we are staying true to who we are and expressing that with respect to others?
It's one of my favorite chakras. For me, it was the biggest one.
Tell us more.
I don't know. There's just so much there. I think when I first got my charts read by one of my best friends, he saw that I had a block there. Like literally, it was on my natal charts. Like that is how much of a block it is. And the first time that I did a reading with my intuitive meditation teacher, Leanne, she also saw that that was the biggest block that was there. And it's funny because we don't usually know, we're not usually aware of these blocks. I used to be one of the youngest executives for billion-dollar startups. And I was leading teams of 20, 50 people under me. And I thought I had no problems with communications or whatsoever, or with my confidence. I was just living life and thought that I had a voice and I was able to use it every day. But boy, was I wrong. I think the shift came for me when I had my spiritual connection with who I really am. I think that is when your throat chakra actually starts to become more apparent in something as becoming something that you might want to work on. So while I was doing my corporate life, I had all this confidence. I was using my communication skills, but once I started to have a spiritual awareness, all of that shifted for me. But yeah, I think the biggest story here is, the long story short is, when I got very spiritual, the books that I was reading were all from yogis and gurus living up in the mountains, preaching to monks. Okay, so their language is very different from our everyday language. So I was way down here communicating at the corporate level, leading teams of like 50 engineers and speaking that language. And then I went all the way out there up into with the yogis and the monks and the lamas, right?
Yeah.
Using that language. And that was the trick. That was the gap, right? So, we're all translators. And I understand that there's a lot of us who are super spiritual, but some of us are very professional, and they're all about perfection, right? But do you want to be like to have perfection, or professional? Do you want to have presence, right? So that is what I came to recognize with my language. I was using all these woo-woo, like spiritual languages that not only cut me off from my friends, who probably needed to hear these messages, but it's also cutting me off from the rest of the world. And so you can be spiritual, but you could be broke. You can be spiritual, but you won't be able to speak your truth. You can be spiritual, but you don't know how to communicate, right? So we're all translators, and it's taking me a really long journey to understand how to use my words correctly and to be able to laugh at myself, and to be able to kind of bring those two energies together, right? So there you can be all of those things, but if you don't understand how to communicate and express it in a way that connects with people, then at the end of the day, no one's going to be able to hear you or connect with you. So that was my story.
I love it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so lit up by your story because I can relate on so many levels. Yeah. And because I was also brought up Chinese being my first language, Mandarin, and then Cantonese, and then English. I was born and grew up in the States. Language has always been so important for me, and I don't know about you, Amy, but like being of a different, I think, ethnicity and learning multiple languages, I really found the use of words and reading and writing to be such an important part of my communication and way of expression of who I am, and really differentiating myself in that way. And funny story that you say about, you know, like being sometimes too spiritual and then versus professional, like even to this day, honestly, sometimes I have to kind of be more aware and conscious of the language that I speak, because, you know, when we speak on a too metaphysical level, some people that aren't in that world or haven't dived into that work yet might not be aware or even like conscious of what you're speaking about. So how do we meet them at their level and really meet each other eye to eye so that we can communicate more effectively and efficiently?
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, I feel like it's actually meeting yourself where you are. I think the biggest part for me is being able to laugh at myself. I was a great communicator when I was at the corporate world, but that's because I knew that I got the system down, and everything that I did, I mastered it. So then it's easy for me to, you know, kind of put myself in that perfection mode, right? Or mold. But then when people question what I did, that was when I get closed up. That was when I got tensed and my body contracts, right? Or when people make jokes about the work that I did or whatever it is, right? That is when you're like, oh man, I did something wrong, right? That self-criticism comes back, and that self-talk comes in. And instead of being able to laugh with them or laugh at yourself, then you kind of go into this, you know, closed off mode. You close the door. So I think for me, you know, to answer that is meeting yourself where you want to be first, right? Like, do you add like my biggest tip for people is like, add humor, you know, add humor, laugh at yourself, joke about yourself with people, free yourself from this image that you have of yourself of having to be perfect or having to speak a certain way, right? Because then people will feel that it's you, it's raw, it's authentic. So yeah.
It's so good. Yeah. Yes, I love, you know, I'm all about that authenticity and staying in our truth, and obviously giving other people the respect to voice their own opinions, right?
Yes.
I think something that's coming up for me is like politics is a huge one, right? We can all have different opinions, and we can really speak how we want to communicate and our thoughts through the language of words, and the beauty of just vocal communication, and even written language is another way to express your and open your throat chakra, but with respect and with regards to the other person's truth as well, because their truth might not be your truth.
That's exactly right. Yes, that's exactly right. I think that takes a lot of wisdom to practice actually, to be able to recognize someone when they're speaking and not get, for instance, lit up right inside and go into reaction mode instead of responding. So what you would know when your throat chakra needs a little bit of extra work, when someone says something that that gets you lit up from the inside, and then you almost want to interrupt them and immediately react with words without thinking twice, right? When you're reacting, you don't have clarity. And when you don't have clarity, then you're not actually responding. You actually have a bias. So when you have a bias, right, then that's when conflict can occur. And that's what creates separation between us and others. And our language and the way that we communicate is not here to create separation. It's here to create connection. Communication creates connection, right? So if our communication is actually creating separation, then there's a lot more work to do. It was funny, I sent out an email about the coronavirus guide, And in there, I mentioned something about vaccines because, you know, vaccines to many people is still an option, right, to heal if they don't know the alternative ways to do so. And someone wrote me back an email and she's like, Amy, I don't understand why you would even mention vaccine if you're all about self-healing and holistic healing. And I had to, you know, kindly respond to her and say, we live in a world where there are so many different opinions, so many different modalities of healing, and we have to recognize and respect all of these modalities in order to create a conversation where we can all exist together and communicate together. Because if I create separation before they even read on to whatever I send out, then they're never going to hear they're never even gonna hear my message of, hey, there's another way. Right? So we need to first recognize who they are, recognize where they are, like what their world, and then use our language to not to validate them, but to acknowledge them, like you said, right? And then bring them a little further into ours by building a bridge.
Right.
So that bridge is what kind of brings us together and joins us together. So yeah.
I love that. That's so beautiful. So I feel like when I was younger, I was told by my family and all my aunties and uncles and everyone that I was actually quite expressive, and I was like very like an old soul ever since I was a kid, and that I would just like be very mature in the way that I speak and talk to people. And I really also loved to sing when I was younger.
That's awesome.
And my mom told me one time I was singing, I was like 5 years old, this like Chinese karaoke song, and she started singing with me, and then I actually corrected her in the way that in the words that she was using. And I thought it was really funny because like I was actually so open to expressing what I thought my beliefs were to be true. And maybe now that we speak about acknowledging the other person's truth, there's definitely more space for that as we grow and we become more mature. But there were certain circumstances when I was younger that really shut down my communication. And as a kid, it's sometimes difficult because you don't have the authority to really to be an adult and really have your own opinion. You might be able to say get away with a couple things here and there, but a lot of times you're going to be corrected and you're going to be told to sit still and be quiet while we're, you know, in a public area or a restaurant or doctor's office, wherever that might be. And so I remember a couple of times where I spoke up about something about someone that I didn't want to be around, and then I was told, oh no, you guys, you know, should be together because you're the same age and this and that, and told me all these reasons. And another scenario where I was actually in kindergarten school, and a girl actually stole my Chinese New Year's money from my book bag, and I spoke up about it, and it went to even the principal, and our parents got involved. But once again, I felt shut down because, you know, her mother and her parents respectfully were, you know, on her side. So I felt that I couldn't really speak my truth because I would be resisted against. And so from then on, there's little things like throughout life that really blocked my throat chakra and just my voice and my expression in general. And so I had to learn to really be more authentic in who I am and identify with that so that I can be more open about my expression. So it all has to kind of come into a balance and harmony. And I'm very careful actually with the way I speak and express to others. I'm usually like a thinker before I speak. So I listen before I speak. I like to do that and just be more aware of the fact that I'm understanding somebody else's perspective before like implying my own.
So instead of projecting your own opinions on someone and just acknowledging them, observing them, and listening to them first.
Yes.
So something that probably your parents didn't do for you at the time when you felt that energy, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably releasing that and reversing that right now by doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
For when you're communicating with other people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that's a powerful story. A lot of our voices are taken from us when we're growing up, period. I think for me, I was lucky enough that I grew up in China. My family were all educators. So I think that was a really big part of my upbringing that helped me understand that I have the power to speak my truth and do whatever I want, technically speaking. Because the more you educate yourself, right, through the books that you read, through the things that you learn, through the people that you communicate with, because my entire family were teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a good communicator in order to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran away from that for a very, very long time because they were all teachers and they weren't making a lot of money. And I wanted money instead of educating. But who knew? You can actually have both, right? But they were really good at communicating to not just one-on-one, but also to one-to-many. So my mom had that skill, my dad had that skill, my grandpa, my grandma, my grandma was a psychologist, my grandpa was a school principal. So it was really, I was just really blessed to have that environment to be able to express myself, even in a country that is basically like a communist country.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got whatever I want. Like I was left-handed, and you can't use your left hand. You can't when you're in Asia. I don't know if that was the case for you, but my school actually got points knocked down from the school district because I was left-handed. But I was able to stand my truth even at the age of 4. That's because I knew that my parents had my back. Mm-hmm. My parents had my back all the time. And they would always say, my child doesn't want to do that. You have to respect her. She's going to use her left hand. You're going to have to eat that point in your point system. And so like those are the things that gave me so much power because of the environment in which we grow up in, right? Mm-hmm. And that's why your story about your parents is really important. Like the reason why Ed and I decided to have a child isn't because our timeline tells us as human beings we should be procreating and bringing in a child after you get married for a couple of years, right? It's because we learned that we have the tools, right, on an emotional level, on a mental level, and on a physical level to actually raise this child in an environment that will allow the child to be themselves and to be able to express themselves freely. And I think that is a skill. I'm not saying that we have mastered it. It's just that we think that we are ready to embark on that journey, right? Without, like you said, projecting our own opinions and the way life should be onto our child. So more of like a guide instead of someone who is like, I don't know, like a strict person in the prison that's imprisoning you, right?
Do you know the term tiger mom?
Oh yeah, tiger mom. Yes, of course. Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of that is okay.
yeah. Definitely balance.
Depending on the child, probably. But yeah. But is that what your mom was? Like, was she tiger mom?
I wonder if my aunt's still on here. She actually got on here. Yeah, I love my family. I love my parents. I had my own issues and things growing up, but I'm grateful because I am the way I am because of my upbringing. My parents were very hands off and they were very liberal. They are very liberal people, except that they were immigrants themselves when they were teenagers.
That's
so they
right.
had to go through that whole experience and that process. And from my understanding, it's that they didn't have the tools and the knowledge that we do to provide for us, the way we might be able to for our next generation.
Yes,
So
that's right.
they tried with the best that they could and that they had.
And we also have to recognize there's a lot of times when we look at our blocks, like whether it's your communication or like whatever else, right? It's usually stemming from childhood, and it usually have to do something with our parents. But then a lot of times we can kind of go into that blame game, right? Instead of practicing forgiveness, either for ourselves or for our parents. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because while a lot of our communication blocks can be stemming from childhood or even like all the way into our past life, like it's just by you saying and recognizing that love for our parents, that they were under certain circumstances and pressure when they're bringing us up, and so we have to kind of honor that and, you know, thank them for it, be grateful, forgive them, and then forgive ourselves, and then work on it in our own way, like you've been doing. Yeah. So that's so beautiful.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I'm gonna check
Dustin. Oh my gosh, this is a good time. A lot of people are joining.
So Dawn's saying, I've been shy my entire life. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Today I speak, but I speak from my heart. Meditation made me a better man. Oh, that's wonderful, Dawn. And meditation does help us with clarity. It absolutely does. And if you've been shy all your life, it's interesting. It might be something that has to do with your past life, right? I'm never shy about talking about past lives. I was born into the world knowing that I had many past lives. Not that I knew what they were, because you kind of forget. That's part of the process. But that could be something that's there, and some work with your past life might be able to even open up your throat chakra more. But I have heard that as long as you're aware and that you're working on it and that you're loving yourself through it, like even if you are not conscious of, you know, breaking those patterns, like whether it's like earlier in your lifetime or in the past lifetime that you have no awareness of, it's working. Like just trust that it's working. Yeah. So Dawn, you feeling better with the meditation is telling you that it's working.
I love that. And I love that you're bringing the past lives into it, because I really believe in that as well.
Yes, I have so many of them. Nikki also said, how do you deal with family members that can't see where you're coming from when you're trying to speak the truth? So it's interesting that you asked this, Nikki. It's actually something that I will ask you to reflect on yourself, actually. It always starts with ourselves. And I tell you what, I have had so many little bickerings with my mother for the longest time, throughout my entire life, because we just almost feel like we come from different worlds. She's like literally, in Buddhism you would call her my Atisha's cook. she's teaching me something every single time we're having a conversation. I'm like, ugh, why can't you see it my way? And then she's like, why aren't you listening to me, right? Or like, I just told you this five minutes ago. Why didn't you hear my voice? I didn't hear you. And like, it just goes on forever. Okay. It just goes on forever and forever and forever. And I just saw your comment. I struggle with being vulnerable with my family. I hear you, Nikki. There was a time, my first heartbreak. Okay. I'm telling you this story. My first heartbreak ever. I was crying so badly in my room, and my mom finally came in, and she saw me crying, like tissues everywhere, right? It's a bad breakup with my first like boyfriend when I was a teenager. She came in, she said, "You did this to yourself. Pick yourself up." She laughed and she closed the door. I was like, what? What just happened? And then I started crying so much more. I was like, my mom doesn't even care about me. Like that, literally, that is my life, right? And so for the longest time, I like thought my mom didn't understand me, that she doesn't care about me even when I'm crying, right? That she has no advice to give me, like whether it's about love, relationships, whatever it is in life, or that even if she does, is advice that hurts me more than helps me or heal me. But to be honest, I had to learn how how to communicate with her based on exactly what Christine was talking about, understanding where she's coming from, right? Like, my mom said, pick yourself up, stop crying, because she was alone in the States raising me and my brother, like, without my dad, right? Like, she was lonely. Like, I was crying because I was going through a breakup. She's probably crying because she's lonely every day, and I don't see it, right? So I started to having to shift my mindset to kind of understand where she's coming from, and my language had to change. That's one thing, Christine.
Mm-hmm.
That language about the throat chakra, I had to change my language with her. I had to use almost language that is more in alignment with the way that she would speak. And I always have to, instead of giving her advice, whenever she talks to me, I stopped altogether. I never ever give anyone advice anymore unless they ask me 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
Not once, not twice, 3 times. Even when someone recommends a client to me, they have lung cancer, whatever cancer, it's like the end of their road, right? And like they give my number away, and they call me once, right? They leave a message, I call them back, I leave a message, and they don't call back. I said, mm-hmm. I'm not calling them back. Like, yeah. You have to want this advice. You have to want my opinion. You have to really want it before I can give it to you, or else you're never going to listen to it anyway, right? Like, when my mom started on celery juice, I think a lot of my students know this story. She had bitter mouth. And she told me about it, like, for so many days, and I was like, well, maybe you and then like, you know, and the only thing I did was like casually mention, maybe you should try celery juice, like very softly. My tone was like very casual. I did not go on about how celery does X, Y, and Z, and then you have to do it on this day, and then on like empty stomach. I didn't go on anything like that. I just said, maybe you should try celery juice once. She came back more and more and more, and then she saw me doing it. And then she was like, okay, well, this is not too hard. Maybe I should try it. She picked it up on her own. And then she did her own research. I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to do anything. She literally healed herself all the way. So I always say this, just live by example. Don't feel like you have to, prove yourself to anyone, not even your parents, right? Don't feel like you have to make them understand who you are in order for you to be okay. Because that is just self-validation that you need for yourself. And get over it. That's what I would say. Get over it. Just understand where they're coming from. Use their language. And drop it. If you're reacting to something, like they don't understand you and you feel bad inside, like, that's something that you have to work on yourself. I just have to say that. It's not their responsibility for you feeling this way. Yeah. So we have to first start with ourselves.
Wow.
So.
Oh my gosh. So good.
I don't know. I hope I didn't offend anyone by saying that.
Not to me. I can relate with you, Nikki, and I can relate to you, Amy, as well, on so many levels. Nikki, I can really speak to, like, what you're saying, sorry, about the video, about that communication with your mother, because I had the same thing. And I do understand that sometimes when you're living in the same household and you haven't quite done the inner work for yourself yet, it might be a little bit more difficult to have healthy boundaries, because you are required to be around each other. You are required to speak to each other and face each other. So sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult, but that's why we do the things like we do with meditation and taking care of our inner being and our well-being first, because then we can come from a place of understanding, of compassion, of seeing them in our own light. Because when you're shining so brightly, like, you don't have room for anything else in your space, and you just want to give them this hug and embrace them with your light. So when you're able to do that, and it's going to take some time, but I know with everything that you're doing and the people that are all watching this, like, we're all in this together, you're going to be okay, and you're doing great.
Yes. Yeah, it's the fact that you ask that question and have that awareness is the first step. It is absolutely the first step. Too many steps, but you're definitely getting there. It's funny because my Ed woke up this morning. Ed's my husband, and he literally just looked at me. He's like, "Did you notice that your parents no longer bicker?" Like, because my dad's here, like, waiting for my baby to be birthed so then he can then go back to China. But he's here, and usually when two people are so far apart for so long, like my mom and my dad has been away from each other for a long time because he has to work in China, bring money in to support us here in the States, all that stuff when we were growing up. They usually bicker when they're together because their two worlds are no longer the same. And then now it's like so easy. And I was like, you know what? I think it's because my mom's starting to heal herself. She's seeing synchronicity numbers like every hour.
She's like waiting by the clock, like, oh, it's 11:11.
Yeah, no, she's literally like, she's like, Amy, look, it's 5:55. I was like, okay, Mom. It's so funny. She's like, I never seen 333 today. I saw 333. It was so hilarious. But it's, you know, she doesn't even know what's happening to her. She's just like in for the ride. And like my dad probably doesn't even know what's happening to her, but they no longer have friction. And it's just such a beautiful thing to witness. Like your parents at the age of like 60 actually like giggling like they're teenagers. Like I would hear them in their room giggling like teenagers. I was like, what's going on? I don't want to know. Right? So it's really such a blessing. And I really feel that it's because I worked on myself. And then my relationship with my mom improved. And then she worked on herself. And then her relationship with herself improved. And then now because of that, her relationship with my dad has improved. Right? So it's like this ripple effect that you can kind of see and witness. And that's why I always say, heal yourself first. Yeah. You don't need to want to heal other people. I know that you want to, but like it's kind of counterintuitive. Heal yourself first. Yeah. And just literally sit back and watch that other people will heal around you. Like you don't even need to do anything.
I felt personally a sense of responsibility for, and this is why I'm doing the work that I'm doing as a coach and as a healer, is because I wanted to be a voice for my mom, and namely I would say the maternal side of my family, or the woman in my family, the grandmothers, my mother, because I felt like their voices were so, and just due to cultural and societal issues, really, it's their voice was really shut down.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
And you know, as a woman, we're kind of told to be submissive and to sit back and do our job and listen, and so I think that's instilled upon us from our ancestral lineage, from our past lives. I was told by my aura reader that I came from 9 generations of like foot binding. So there's a lot of deep work that we're doing for ourselves. And so when you cut that cord and you're able to do it for yourself, you're freeing your ancestors as well and your future lineage.
Yes, exactly. Hi, Ronnie. I love it. Yes. Oh, yes. Christine is resonating with Ronnie. I love it. So good. Yes. Oh, that is so deep. You know, it's funny because we, in Chinese culture, you always say that, you know, you come from your dad's family or that side, you want to have a boy, but really a lot of our genetics and like, it's actually, and all of the emotional codes actually come from the maternal side. And when we release all of those blockages, it actually heals all of those generations. I truly believe that. Not just on a metaphysical level, but literally on a physical level. I am seeing that with my mother, and like she's the first person that I want to help in this world, and probably the last person I thought I could help, but she is really the first person that actually helped herself once I helped myself. And I think that is the most beautiful thing that you can witness in a lifetime, where you've been struggling so long to help someone that you felt like you were powerless and hopeless to help for so long. But you're absolutely able to do it. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I love it, Christine. Yeah, foot binding. Let's get rid of that energy.
Yes. Timeline
No
healing
more.
for sure.
Yes, that's exactly right. I love it. So this has been really wonderful. Maybe I could talk a little bit about the healing foods because we didn't get a chance to do that. The addictions that I listed, you guys have your emails. If you guys are joining the challenge, you guys can still join, and Christine will be able to send you all of the information every single day. So if you feel yourself that you're interrupting people, I was a big culprit of this, you guys. Like, I grew up thinking that I knew it all. Not because I thought I was better than anyone. I actually thought that everyone else knew it all as well. So I was a know-it-all, but believing that everyone else knew it all as well. So when someone says something that I was like, oh, I know that, right? I would totally interrupt them, right? And I have to slap myself for that all the time now. I have to like bring it back. Like, that is a signal that like you said, I'm not respecting another person's expression. I'm actually cutting their expressions off before they could actually complete their expression. So so if that's an addiction that you have, like, can't stop talking, you can't stop interrupting people, you're constantly eating using your mouth, and you constantly have like some sort of issues like with like mucus in your throat and like lung issues, right? Then you definitely want to work on your throat chakra. And the healing food that you can do is actually cucumbers. I actually have a new love for cucumbers. Cucumber is actually a fruit. Did you guys know that? It's a fruit. It's like the funniest looking piece of fruit on earth. It's not even sweet. Like,
it has seeds.
Yeah, and it has seeds. Yes.
Yeah, I guess because avocado is a fruit.
Yes, avocado is a fruit as well. So cucumbers, I was looking this up, and medical medium said you want to find your cool by eating cucumbers, and I thought that was such a great way to kind of think about it. If you guys all like Obama, right? Like, you know how he has such good communications skills. He has that swag, right? Like, because, you know, I just think Black people have swag, right? Like, they do everything right, even the presidency right, with that swag, right? And the way that he speaks is...
No matter your political view, okay?
Right, no matter what, yeah, exactly. But anyway, so if you want to have good communication skills like Obama, right, be cool, like, have swag like him, eat the cucumber. And you can juice it. It's really, really good for our lymphatic system as well. So it's really good for healing when you're doing, when you're healing your eczema, when you're healing your acne. It's actually, I feel like it's what saved me from my acne breakout when I was detoxing, just like drinking more cucumber juice in addition to the celery juice to kind of like flush everything out. And that was a really big one, I feel like, because when your skin is, you know, when you have body image issues, it blocks your communications, I feel like. I don't know if you feel that way.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people who come to me when they're healing their skin, it's a reflection also about their body image blocks. So yeah, I love it. Diana saying, "Yay, Obama cool cucumber."
Definitely. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, because as a kid, my mom did not like cucumbers. So I would eat all the foods that she didn't like. She would give me all of the cucumbers.
Oh my gosh! Oh my goodness! Well, you have it. So
I love it. Yes.
Yeah. Elizabeth, you are asking, do you drink it morning or evening? You can drink it throughout the day. So drink it morning, evening, throughout the day. It doesn't matter. It's one of the most cooling things. You know how people put cucumbers on their eyes because they're like dark circles? Drink it. Drink it.
Right.
Yeah. Hydrate yourself from the inside out, and when you have hydration, it lubricates your throat, and then that will be really healing for your throat chakra as well. So oh, your mom. Yeah. Yeah, moms are funny. Oh my goodness. They either save you the things that you love to eat, or I guess in this case they give you the things that they don't want to eat.
I know, right? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they are so fun. That's awesome. Thank you, Christine. Those are all such great stories.
Yeah, we had so much. Oh my gosh, like I don't. It's funny. I found it funny because today is throat chakra, and we just like have so many beautiful, fun stories, and like
yes,
we could just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, one last thing on the note of story that I want to tell all of you who have been here with us for like 45 minutes, right? Thank you for that, first of all. Just watching us talk and using our throat chakra. But if you guys have blocks with your throat chakra, go read stories and then try telling stories. Stories is really the currency of the world. Like, stories is what connects people. Stories is what brings people together, right? If you have communication issues with your parents, with whoever, even with a child, what do? You tell stories. So I think that would be one of my biggest breakthroughs that I had in the last year, understanding how to communicate with others through storytelling a little bit more and not be afraid to tell stories like with Christine, and also pulling stories out of you as well. Yes. Yes, so that we can kind of bridge more together and give you guys a good laugh as well.
Can you tell I'm more of like a listener? I've always been more of like, you know, because I told you about how like all the stories that happened from when I was a childhood, I learned to be more of like a listener. Yeah. And I really had to practice like really being vocal again and just sometimes a lot of people say like they don't like hearing their voice. And I get that. I resonate with that. But then it's also like, hi, Miriam. Like, what is it about it that you don't enjoy? Then, like, let's work with that. Yes. How can we shift that?
Yes, that's right. I love that, Christine, being able to look at yourself and listen to yourself and be like, okay, if I don't like this, what can I do? Like, what is that version of myself that I would like? I love listening to people to do TED Talks. I actually love watching Joel Osteen. He's do you guys know who he is? He is a pastor, priest. I don't know. Joel but he's such a good storyteller and public speaker, right? Like, find the people that is so good at speaking, that inspires you, that motivate you, and see if you can also use that in your language. Like, incorporate a little bit, right? And see if that flows with you. See if you like it. See if it will open you up, right? Because we're all here to help each other. So by listening to someone that inspires you, you can incorporate those into your own voice and start to develop your own over time. Yes. So, yes, I love it.
Does anyone have any questions? I love everyone joining. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hi, Miriam. Hi, Esther.
Yes. Dawn says, I put it in my ninja fruits and vegetables every day. Yes, good. Yes, cucumbers. Mm-hmm. Awesome. So this is wonderful. Okay. If there's no additional questions, we've been here for almost an hour.
Wow.
I know.
That throat chakra, just going.
Yeah. Keep on coming. I love it. I love it. Yes. Oh, so good.
I guess that's all for today.
Yeah, let's do it. So love yourselves, do the cucumber, tell stories, and love your family. I feel like that was a theme, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of us. Oh my goodness. Oh, so good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
Yes, I'm so glad you guys enjoyed the story. Great. I love it. So Christine will send out the email and the recap. And what about tomorrow? Christine, you want to preview tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Third Eye. And
right here.
April Fender is going to be coming on IG with me tomorrow. She was my first chakra and Reiki teacher. I came across her in Los Angeles, and she kind of like in that time in my life was a catalyst for all the work that I'm doing now. So you'll get to hear from her. She's really great. So I'm looking forward to it. And then Saturday will be our last day together for the
That's right. For the crown, right?
Yes.
Yes. Great. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear tomorrow on the Third Eye. That's a really, really fun one. All right. Well, I love you guys so much. Thank you, Christine. I love you.
Thank you, Amy. I love you too.
I will see you guys later. Bye.